Hello. Today I wanted to show you some techniques that I like to call sketching painterly. I see sketching as the foundation to really great artwork, whether it's watercolor, oil, pastels, painting in any way. Sketching is foundational. Good sketching is foundational. But sometimes it's just fun to sketch. I like to use fountain pens, I like to use water brushes, brush pens, Fuda nibs, all related to creating an energized line to your sketch, if you will. And that's what I like to call sketching painterly. Someone once told me that my sketches basically look like a painting, and I took that as a compliment. I don't necessarily want to depend on the line all the time. So what we're going to do is talk about some tips. We're going to talk about how to create expressive lines. We're going to do a great subject today. As you can see, I've chosen the St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, which offers up really a level of complexity. But I want to show you how we can simplify it through expressive line and then the addition of watercolor wash. We'll have a lot of fun today. So let's get started. I've developed what I like to call my 7 tips to create expressive sketches. It's real easy to get bogged down in detail. When we're sketching, it's just a sketch. Don't worry about counting windows. Don't worry about all the little details that will really bog you down and frustrate you more than anything. So my number 1 tip is observe your subject and simplify and quickly interpret. What does that mean? Well, express the detail. Express the detail and maybe a blurred line. Not necessarily an exact duplicate of the subject, if you will. Number 1, draw what you love. I love architecture. I love old buildings. I love nautical scenes. I love the complexity, really, of a subject to where it challenges me to simplify the details. Just get close. I think the more expressive the line, the more energy the sketch possesses, and I think the better the sketch as well. And that's why I love the word sketch. That's exactly what it is. We're not rendering. We're not taking a photograph. We're observing the subject. We're contemplating really what it is. We're losing ourselves within the viewing and the observation of the subject. We're enjoying ourselves. So that's why we want to stay loose. We want to quickly, again, interpret what we see. And it's our interpretation as artists, as sketch artists, as watercolorists, as painters. It's all our personal expression. Number 2, like with any level of painting, you go through a series of layers. And the same with the pen. I'm using a fountain pen, a fine point fountain pen here, and that gives me the ability to quickly throw a line there. I'm not worried about a perfect line in any way, but I want to begin to layer. I want to look at what's right, and I like to say, draw it light until it's right. Redraw a line. If your line doesn't look exactly like your subject, then redraw it, restate it. Don't worry about drawing over it. Again, that all adds the level of energy to what your ultimate sketch will be. And that's what I think that's what's cool about drawing in general, and and just having the ability to use your talents and your skills to interpret the subject. So what I'm doing here again, domes are not easy, but I'm getting as close as I can to the shape and form, and I want to ensure that it's part of the focal element of this particular drawing, and I want to make sure it's something that when you look at it, you say, oh yeah, I know where that is. Hey, it's not perfect. Don't want it to be, but I do want it to be expressive. I do want it to look relatively close to the subject, but again, I'm not going to bog myself down with the frustration of the details. And that's why I love to use ink. And my third tip is commit to the line. Draw it. That's what it is. That's what it was meant to be. And I think that's part of the fun of drawing with ink in particular. It does build your confidence. There's no erasing. It's part of the overall energy of the sketch, and let it be. Draw a line. If it's not right, draw it over. Again, draw a light until it's right, and restate the line if you need to. Scratch where you need to, infill where you need to. It's all part of the sketching process, and that's what I'm doing here. Just trying to start from the top down, work my way into the detail, but really the illusion of detail, and that's part of what's fun about sketching with ink as well. I'm sketching on an interesting paper. It's a handmade watercolor paper. It's relatively rough in texture, so it takes ink pretty well, and you'll see at the end of this video where it takes watercolor pretty well as well. It's quite absorbent. It's quite porous. It's a lot of fun to paint on. So number 4, as you can see, just express the details. Don't state the details. You're not worried about that level of articulation that can get you frustrated when it doesn't look right. You get close, and that again is what's fun. Value, contrast, and composition basically wins the day when it comes to a good sketch. It's not the details. If you want details, take a picture. We're here to sketch and to have fun, and sometimes express our own interpretation of what the subject is and what it should be. Part of the fun too is drawing what you want others to see, not necessarily what's there, and that makes it fun as well. In areas of contrast, in this particular case, you can crosshatch, you can increase certainly some of the depth with the darks and so forth. But with me using a fine point, it sometimes creates a little bit more work to create contrast, and I'll show you a little later of how I like to really increase my depth of a drawing, of a sketch as well. And here, as I venture into the lower part of the basilica, there's a lot of columns, there's a lot of sculpture, there's building details that I do not want to bog myself down with, but I do want to get relatively close. You can look at the image and squint your eyes, see where the darks are, see where you might need to add a little bit more contrast, a little bit more line variance. And right now I'm also trying to work on proportion. I do want to make sure the verticals are pretty close, and the width of the building is pretty close. I'm a little bit off, but that's the beauty of just it being a sketch. I haven't used any pencil to pre-work any of the lines. Uh, that's not my style in quick sketching. I like to literally commit immediately to the ink line and see where it goes from there. That's what I love about using a fountain pen. That's what I love about being committed to where the line is going to bring me. And again, just trying to throw a few darks in there, looking at where the contrast to the columns will accentuate the columns a bit. That's always a lot of fun. Number 5, darks and contrast are key. Sketches can look pretty much one-dimensional if you just maintain a singular level of line quality and not really diverting the line in any way, creating anything that gives it that level of energy and expressiveness. So it's really important to squint your eyes when you look at a subject and go ahead and add the darks where you see them, however you feel best, whether it's through cross-hatching on various directions. You'll see shortly, I like to use the Fuda pen, which has a great ability of diverse line quality because of it's a bent nib, and it gives a nice contrast darks. It really introduces some substantial darks immediately to the sketch, which begins to really bring it to life. It adds that three-dimensional quality, and that's always certainly a lot of fun indeed. Well, we talk about it a lot, but number 6, loose expressive lines create the energy. You can see I don't have a lot of straight lines. As I draw a line, I'll go over it a couple, 3 times just to give it a little bit of a diverse look. Is it right? I don't know. I'll draw it, take a look at the subject. If it's close, it's good enough. Trying to get some verticals in there. I love the idea of getting close. Domes, rotundas, and round windows are always a little bit of a challenge, only because sometimes they're a little bit more difficult to draw proportionally. Get some windows where we think they are. Add some cross hatching, and it begins to bring the sketch to life. This particular sketch I've worked right to left, being right-handed. That's probably against the grain, but starting with the dome, working my way down, and I wanted to get a little bit of that the base of the building refined somewhat, and then we'll work with some cross hatching and some darks keeping loose, staying loose. Uh, Let the pen work. You know, let your whole arm work as well, not just your hand. You know, bring that level of sketch quality, if you will, to the overall product. That's what's a lot of fun. As we head into the home stretch here, I've sped up the speed of the sketch a little bit. I wish I could draw that fast. That looks like even more fun. But I wanted to get to the final steps of really what this sketch will be. And you can see, I think I've got it proportionally on the paper okay. I'm now looking at as how I can use some line to help some contrast, bring a little bit of extra dimension to the sketch. Trying to look at where I can create kind of a middle ground, if you will. Some shadow patterns. I'm squinting my eye as I look at the subject photo, trying to give a little bit of dynamic quality. And here I use my Fuda pen. We talked about it earlier. It's the bent nib, and it's great to just come in and add some of those drastic darks. You don't want to overdo it. Sometimes I'll use the Fuda pen entirely on a drawing. In this particular case, as we talked about in one of our earlier tips, I like to layer. It's like painting. You start light, and you continue to add your darks, whether it's cross hatching or using a thicker nibbed pen. And in this particular case, I really like the Fuda because it brings that very dynamic dark to the sketch. And you'll see when we start adding color in a little while, you'll see how it all begins to blend. So I'm just jumping around the subject a little bit to see where I can get my biggest points of contrast. I'm looking at the windows, trying to hit those. I like to keep the windows relatively dark and not and use the pen not necessarily color. Again, trying not to smear, working right to left when I should be working left to right, but I'm backwards sometimes. Yeah, but this Fuda pen really begins to add that three-dimensional quality, I think, to the final product. I'll have to do a little video on Fudas at some point, but they're a great tool in your toolbox. If you don't have one, we'll talk more about it. Give it a shot. It's a lot of fun. But you can see this sketch all of a sudden coming to kind of a different level. It's really beginning to come to life. And this is where the final product is added when you bring it to a level of color. So here we go. So my last tip is paint with the pen. Watercolor then becomes easy. So we've created quite a foundational sketch here, if you will. We've used contrast through hatching. We've used our Fuda pen. Now I'm going to get as close as I can with some color. You don't want it to become a paint by numbers, but you do want to add some interest and certainly some color wash We talked a little bit about this paper earlier. It is more of a porous watercolor paper, and I'm going to just find some snippets of color and color variants. Let the colors begin to blend on the paper. I'm using a relatively thin brush, which sometimes I do. Sometimes I use a little bigger brush as well. But in this particular case, I think it's a small format sketch, so I don't mind using a little bit of a smaller brush. So as I work through the color, I get close. Again, it's not a perfect interpretation. It's my own personal interpretation. So I think the color just really begins to add another level of beauty to the sketch. You want to identify your light source, be sensitive to that throughout. Look at where your heavy contrast can be. I want to add some darks up underneath the roofs of those columns toward the base of the building. Some different blues, some blends of cooler colors for the shadows, and warm, certainly for the overall building facade. And I'm not copying the color. As you can see in the photograph, it's relatively light. Well, I'm going with a little darker mix of warm yellow ochre and sky blue, a little bit of teal. Don't normally talk a lot about color. I just look at warms and cools. But I love the combination of pen and ink and watercolor wash. You know, again, it gets into a situation where you don't want it to be a paint by numbers. It's something that we can apply within the foundation that we've set with our ink drawing. And this is certainly an opportunity to bring a new level of energy to your sketch, one that I really like. I did speed up the timing a bit, but I almost paint that fast, but not quite. Add a few little sparks here and there with the color without worrying about staying within the lines, I should say. I don't like the color within the lines. I like the color quickly. So this has been certainly a lot of fun to make happen, for sure. And I look forward to having a few more of these I can share. And again, when I look at the photograph, there's a lot of elements of that photograph that I'm not really adhering to, such as a blue sky. I'd like to create a little bit more atmosphere with maybe a warmer horizon line, warmer sky, with some blue to just begin to blend to look as if maybe it's an evening sky in Rome over this beautiful basilica. That's what gives it that individual personality. While it's still a little bit of wet, I'll darken the sky a bit and try to create a little bit more contrast. I think overall it works pretty well. I like the idea of the darker sky, the warmer horizon, and then it works into the detail of the building. That's certainly a lot of fun to make that happen, to see that come to life. So as we begin to finish up our final product, it's certainly been a good time for me. I hope it has been for you as well. Always sign your work especially when you think it's good. If you don't think it's good, just put it in a drawer somewhere and consider it practice. But it's been a fun opportunity for me to share this process, and I hope it inspires you to begin to look at how to sketch painterly, and certainly make sure that you interpret subjects the way you feel they should be interpreted. Use your own artistic license to make it happen. And thank you very much. It's been a fun time. Take care, and we'll see you next time for sure.